So today I'm going to be teaching you about the artist Georgia O'Keeffe. So Georgia O'Keeffe was a very important American artist who was born in 1887. She primarily painted flowers, skulls, and southwestern landscapes, especially in New Mexico, which was her favorite place to go and visit. With her flower paintings, she really zoomed in closely on them and did the details with light and color and shapes because she really liked to focus on those things in the natural world. She also liked to focus on the abstract forms in the natural world regarding the skulls and flowers and mountains especially. When she painted bones, she didn't like to think that they just symbolized death, but she liked to think that they symbolized the eternal beauty of the desert. So she loved to paint bones side by side with the landscapes and some flowers because she liked that contrast. So I'm going to show you a couple of examples of some of Georgia O'Keeffe's paintings so you can kind of get an idea of what she does. She likes to paint a lot with oil. So you're gonna see some of her paintings here. This is one of her flower paintings. So like I said before, she really zooms in on her flowers and doesn't just paint the flower as a whole. And you can see the different colors she uses. There's a lot of red and orange and yellow. So she's using those warm colors that we've talked about before. Another painting she's done is this one. So you can see the bone and the skull painting side by side with those poinsettia flowers. This one has kind of a surreal vibe to it, almost like a Salvador Dali painting. Not only with the colors, which are very pastel and light, but with that landscape, she has a very large skull and a very large flowers just floating in the sky. So it's a little different. It's not very realistic. So those pastel colors give a very dreamlike experience with her painting. And the painting we're going to look at today is this one. So here's another skull painting side by side with a flower again. And the skull painting is kind of floating in the sky, which is unusual and not realistic again, but the way she painted it does have a realistic feel to it with the lights and the shadows that she's using. You can see that New Mexico landscape in the background. Like I said before, New Mexico was her favorite place to be and to paint. So today we are going to do a drawing inspired by this painting right here. So you're going to want to have a piece of paper and a pencil to start with. You want to make sure you're using your pencil lightly while you're drawing in case you make a mistake so you can erase it. If you do not have a pencil, you can always use another material like a pen. You'll just have to embrace your mistakes. So I'm going to erase my board here. This is what I'm going to use for my painting or my drawing. And we're going to start with our paper up and down like this. This is called portrait mode. And you can see my skull in the background here for inspiration. I'm not sure what animal this was, but it's very similar to what we're going to be drawing with ours. So we're going to start towards the center of our page. And we're going to start with a wavy line that kind of looks like a small hill. On either side of that wavy line, we're going to do a backwards C and a forward C. This is where those two horns are going to go. So we're kind of creating those pockets for them. We're going to start on the left-hand side of our skull and start with a large bump. This is going to be where our eye socket is going to go. And it's going to go in and back out again. But it's going to be a smaller bump this time. Back in, even more. And we're going to finish with the nose at the bottom. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. but just reversed. So this is going to show symmetry, meaning if I drew a line straight down the middle, it'll be the same on both sides. So I'm going to do a large bump for the eye socket, come in, come back out, and back in. So it's okay if it's not perfect. Bones are all bumpy and different shapes, so you don't have to worry about it being exactly alike on both sides. After we get the main part of our skull, we're going to add the eye sockets on either side inside each of those big bumps. So I'm going to do like a half oval or a half circle for the eyes on both sides. And you're going to fill it in. After we get our eye sockets done, we're going to add the nose bridge. So the nose bridge is this part right here. And that's going to be in between the two eyes, and it's going to be kind of like an oval shape. But it's going to be skinnier at the top, and it's going to get wider at the bottom. So that's the nose bridge. And you're also going to fill that in. So if you have a nose bridge, that means you're also going to have nostrils. So the nostrils are going to be at the very bottom of our skull, and we're going to use two small oval shapes. So I'm going to actually fix this part so it's a little more centered. We're going to add our nostrils right at the bottom there. So as you can see, I'm fixing some of my mistakes. That's why it's always helpful to use a pencil or a dry erase marker. After you do the nostrils, we're going to add a straight line coming from the top in the center of our skull. And we're going to connect it with a V starting from the eye socket. Like that. And then we're going to add the cheekbones. So these bones right here on either side of that nose bridge, but we're not going to fill them in. And then we're going to connect those V's to that bridge. So it kind of makes like a diamond shape right there. So that's the main part of our skull, but what's missing are the horns. So we're going to add our horns on both sides of our skull inside of these sockets that we did at the very beginning. So we're going to start with a curved line that goes upward and kind of goes to the right again. So it almost looks like a weird looking S. So you're going to do the same thing below it to thicken that horn. So we got our first horn. Now we're going to do the same thing to the other side. So we're going to try to keep the same shape, doing that stretched out S. And then bringing it with another line down like that. So I kind of ran out of room on my paper. I didn't start in the center as much as I should have, but that's okay. And then we're going to add some lines inside each horn towards the bottom. These are called hatch marks. So we got our skull, just like the one in Georgia O'Keeffe's painting. So one thing that is missing with this skull is the flower that's next to it. So you can make your flower any way you want. You could do a tulip, you could do a rose. I'm going to do just like a generic flower shape. And I want you to do it either on the left side or the right side of your skull. So I'm going to do the right side because I have more room over here. I'm going to start with a small circle. And I'm going to do some petals that are kind of like a heart shape. Like that. And I'm going to do those all the way around. But I'm going to add an extra bump in some of them. So I got my flower. I'm gonna add an extra bump in this one too. And then I'm gonna add some lines at the bottom of each petal. A little bit of detail in it. So we got our flower. We got the skull and the flower. And instead of doing the landscape in the background like Georgia O'Keeffe usually does, we're gonna do some patterns. So a pattern is a repeated design over and over. So an easy way to do that is to pick a shape or a line and then just do the same thing over and over. So if I were to do a circle, I would repeat the circles for my pattern and it creates polka dots. So that's how you do patterns. But before I start doing them, I'm gonna add some horizontal lines in the background. So horizontal lines are lines that go straight across like that. And it's okay if your lines aren't perfectly straight. You can also use a ruler. And if you don't have a ruler, you can use a straight edge of like a book or a sketch pad, whatever you have lying around. I'm not going to worry too much about how straight my lines are, but I want you guys to space them out about 1 to 2 inches. So you can see that my lines aren't very straight, but it doesn't bother me. You just want to make sure your lines go behind the skull and the flower, because this is the background. So there are my lines. Remember, these are horizontal lines. They go side to side, kind of like how a horizon line in a picture is where the sky meets the land. So it creates that line that goes straight across. Inside each of these strips that we just created, we're going to add a pattern. We're going to try to do a different pattern for each strip. So remember, patterns are repeated designs. If you want some inspiration, you can always look online for different patterns, or you can just pick a shape and repeat it over and over. So if I did a circle, I would just do a bunch of little circles inside my strip. And that's how you make a pattern. If I were to just do one circle, that would just be a shape. But now that I'm repeating it, it becomes a pattern. I want you guys to try to use different colors for the background. So you could do colored pencils, you can do gel pens, markers, crayons. I'm using my dry erase markers. I'm going to do a wavy line now for my next row. And I'm repeating that wavy line again for my pattern. Let's see. I'm going to do some triangles. So I'm repeating the same shape over and over. I'm also alternating colors. So my next color, I'm going to do green. And since I only have those 4 colors available, I'm just going to start over with pink again. And I'm going to create a pattern with my colors. Let's see another pattern. I'm going to look at a pattern worksheet that is available in the lesson plan. It looks something like this. So I just found this online for some inspiration. You can just Google patterns or simple patterns to kind of give you some ideas. So I'm going to do some diagonal lines. So I'm using my green And after I'm done with my green, I'm going to go back to pink. That's the first color I used in the beginning. But what pattern do I do next? Let's see. I'm going to do some dashed lines. So dashed lines are really short lines that go any direction you want. I might do a cow pattern for my next one. And my next color, I'm going to use purple, because that's what I used after pink the first time right here. So I'm kind of starting over with my color scheme and using the same order that I started with. So I'm not only making patterns with lines and shapes, but I'm making patterns with my colors as well. So I'm going to do my cow shape. Trying to stay inside each of my strips. Reminds me of the Purple Cow. That used to be a restaurant nearby me. Let's see. I'm going to look at some more ideas on that sheet. I'm going to do big circles now. Trying to stay behind my skull. And you can even do more circles inside. You could do more smaller circles, or you could even add lines in the background. Maybe I wanted to do some squiggle lines too. So I'm combining two patterns in one row. So I got 3 strips left. I'm going to do green because green is the color I used after blue in the beginning. And I'm going to do some half circles, and I'm going to stack them so it looks like scales, kind of like how the scales look on a mermaid tail or a dragon scales. And now I'm going to do pink. Second to last row. Maybe I'm going to do some checkers. So with checkers, you do straight vertical lines. Trying to keep the spacing as even as possible. And for the checkers, you do straight horizontal lines on top. As straight as you can get them. Last pattern, let's see, I'm going to do purple because that's what I used after pink down below. I am going to do some squiggly lines. This is a thin strip at the top here. I can't fit a whole lot. And that is your completed drawing inspired by Georgia O'Keeffe. So you can see the contrast of the color in the background with the black and white skull works very well. But you can do whatever you want for your drawing because it's your artwork. All right. Thank you guys so much for joining the lesson, and I hope you are inspired by Georgia O'Keeffe now. Feel free to look up more paintings that she's done and create another one based off of her artwork as well.